Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be talking about the Olympics opening and this Last Supper motif that they did. And then we're going to transition into a critique of a video about the deep state. And I think that kind of parlays with a previous video that I did about Trump and the attempted assassination and how the deep state and the national security state has circumvented many different presidents, and so please see those videos. I think that was episode 8, maybe it was episode 9 of Zero Gen, or Gen Zero. So what I'd like to do is, before we do that, please subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please be a paid member on my Patreon channel. I have different tier membership with different benefits. And please go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and you can donate there. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee on the homepage at the very bottom. Better yet, please go to the store and listen to the protocols to increase your health, to increase the longevity, to slow down the aging process with the supplementation and the routines that I do. I offer all very high quality products. This is something that I do every day. And if you pay attention to basically the routine, proper supplementation, proper diet, exercise, proper brain exercises, proper balancing, you're going to slow down the aging process. This can happen. And by following this protocol, you're increasing your years of life and your vitality of years of life. And if you watch episode 1 through 4 of Gen Zero, you will understand why this is important, because it'll give you this opportunity to take advantage of some of the precision medicine advances that are going to start to happen in 2029. This is very important. So if you follow my lead, you will benefit. If not, that's your choice. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get some of the products that I offer, such as the structural nano silver toothpaste. This has structural nano silver, no fluoride in it. It'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce the inflammation on your gums, and with good oral hygiene, you're going to reduce cardiovascular disease and reduce valvular disease. That's really important. This is the best toothpaste that you'll be able to get. So get a few tubes of this toothpaste for your household. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. In addition, I have drops and lozenges for the cold season that will be coming up. So you should be starting to prepare for that. In addition, people still have allergies. So I have the drops in honey, lemon, and in blueberry. The count is 100, it's a honey count. And the lozenges that I have in stock right now are elderberry zinc in a 21 count. So please go to the store and get a few bags for your household. I have structural nano silver gels, 2 types. I have it in a dispenser, and I also have it in a tube. All right. You apply this on your hands, around your mouth, around your nose, around your ears, around your eyes. Lightly coat your nostrils. It'll neutralize pathogens for 5 hours. In addition, you can use it as a skincare product. It'll help heal wounds. It'll help with acne. It'll help to reduce abrasions and minor burns, speed up the healing process. In addition, you can apply it on your skin and exfoliate in the morning. So you put it on your skin before you go to bed, and then you exfoliate in the morning, and you'll notice that your skin is tighter and clear. So these are very high quality products. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver gel. What I'm going to do with this video is discuss how woke the Olympic Games in Paris are. So let me play the video. As people have been hearing in the news, there was this disrespect of the Last Supper by Da Vinci, by a bunch of woke, kind of a very low budget woke kind of situation here. There was also and maybe I'll find the video, a pale horse that was riding on the water, um, kind of scary because the pale horse, is part of the revelation. But here we go with the woke opening ceremony being anti-Christian.
I'm sorry, but I can't stop laughing at this. It's the Last Supper. What the hell is going on? Unless you've been living under a rock, you could have possibly missed the havoc caused by the orchestrated arson attacks on the rail network in France, responsible for bringing many, including athletes, to Paris in time for the opening ceremony for the Olympics, which aired last night. But after seeing that, many are wondering why they bothered. A ceremony that looks as if it had been created by someone on a serious acid trip. It was a very watery event which began on the River Seine with 85 boats, with the athletes on board travelling through a lesson in French history. Every stereotype was there: a woman in a dress covered in croissants, can-can dancing, Lady Gaga gave a great performance, Moulin Rouge dancers and parkour on rooftops. There was a ring of fire in the sky, and a recently refurbished Notre Dame Cathedral which featured. There were gaffes with country names. South Korea was labelled North Korea. You don't want to do that. There were upside-down flags and a headless Marie Antoinette. Thank God for the closing performance, which was a rendition of Edith Piaf's Hymn to Love, performed by Celine Dion, who is currently battling health issues, though I think God probably would have checked out by now after the woke parody of The Last Supper, which includes a blue-coloured character which could have easily been mistaken for Eagle Piggle from The Night Garden, who I thought was meant to be Jesus, but that actually turned out to be Dionysus, the Greek god of the theatre. Around the table were dancers and models.
Now, the announcer doesn't say this, but I think this is an important interpretation I have of what's been going on with events around the world, especially high-profile events like the Olympics. The previous video I did, I was talking about the disrespect of government by its people, and especially I was talking specifically about the presidency, the office of the presidency, and how there's a disrespect that's happening within my country, the United States, by the people, and also a disrespect of the office by the people holding the office, and also elected officials in Congress and how they're disrespecting the office of the presidency. And you could extrapolate that also, or apply it to citizens disrespecting other offices of government, like the judicial branch, judges on the Supreme Court, for example, or House speakers in Congress. So there's a disrespect that's happening to different offices in government, at least in my country, and I would say that it's happening in many different countries around the world, probably even the prime ministership of the UK and what's going on in France politically. So there's this disrespect that's going on in government, within government, and by its people. But there's also disrespect that's going on in events like the Olympics. And what's happening is there's this kind of more push of some sort of ultra-liberal agenda, ultra-woke agenda. And it's very similar to what Gucci was doing with its fashion, right? Tom Ford has his own fashion company that he sold, but Tom Ford was tied to Gucci, right? He was in the house of Gucci. And that's how he really made his name. But this is during that time period where when they were doing the actual fashion shows, that it was becoming not about style and fashion, but more about how much can you shock the audience. This McQueen fashion designer also was kind of a shock kind of like a shock jock kind of fashion designer, kind of in a way where you have, I know this sounds kind of odd that I bring this up, but the shock jock aspects to Howard Stern. Howard Stern applied it to radio. But there was this how do you get the audience to be more engaged or waiting for the next thing that you release by just shocking them? That's not really related to the actual real product. In this case, with Tom Ford and Gucci, it was the real product was the clothing and the design of the clothing, the quality of the clothing. But the actual fashion design, the actual fashion show, was more about how do you shock the audience by the type of model you're using, or the revealing aspects of the clothing on the model, and not so much the actual design. And I think it diminished fashion, and and once you shock an audience up to a certain point, they won't be responsive anymore, because it's an S curve. You've shocked them to the max, and you can't shock them anymore, so they won't be responsive. Tom Ford lived in that kind of era in fashion, all right? And he even mentions this, and he brings it up when the House of Gucci movie came out, and he talks about, what was happening behind the scenes, because he was a part of that. And so there was this shock value, all right? Kind of a jeer, and then you can apply it to even talk shows. Back in the day, there was Donahue and Jerry Springer and Oprah, and you look at the old tapes, they're more about content and hearing someone talk about something. But then over time, it became more of a free-for-all. Same thing in news. Walter Cronkite news, right? And then all of a sudden, you fast forward to today's news on CNN or any news, even Fox, and it becomes a shouting match. It's all about talking points and yelling at each other, and it's there's a cacophony of just noise. It's just chaos, and there's very little new content. So, and for whatever reason, that's what gets the eyeballs, is to create division. But it's the shock value. Well, you can apply this to what's going on with the Olympics. There's the shock value that's taking place. Now, in the news, you see it every day. If you see a program like Oprah, that's an everyday or, 5 days a week kind of show, right? But the Olympics, you're talking every 2 years, there is some sort of an Olympic event that's taking place. So you're getting this, it's at a little slower rate, it's a little slower frequency than, let's say, the news, but they are promoting these woke agendas, and it's getting more and more. Now, what is interesting is that it didn't seem so obvious with the Asiatic Olympics events or ceremonies, but it seems more prevalent with Western civilization Olympic ceremonies. I think that's telling, all right, about what's going on in the societies, and that there's disrespect of, again, I keep on coming down to this simple concept: God, country, and family. So you can be inclusive and be understanding of people, even if you don't agree with them. But what's happening is that culture and art is trying to push the boundaries or break the barriers of civil conduct. And they did that during the Olympics in Paris this year. by denigrating the Last Supper in a very low budget kind of foolery way. But they're promoting this kind of like woke drag queen stuff, right? And we need in our society where we aren't in fast fashion or in fast talk or in sound bites, but logical, vigorous debate, but respectful. And we need to be more cultural in the sense of not through acceptance. Culture is not through acceptance. Culture is through having a certain cordialness, but not trying to force it upon the other group. I think with wokeism, what's happening is they're trying to force it and trying to re-engineer school systems in the United States and re-engineer the relationship between the parent and the child. And that child now is becoming more and more property of the school system or more and more property of the state. I think that's dangerous. I think that's extremely dangerous. So the society needs to be more educated and more cultured. Now, what can we learn from, let's say, Ralph Lauren? All right, very successful designer, fashion designer. Has a foundation that helps with cancer and has promoted many quote social programs, social justice kind of programs. But Ralph Lauren never took the route like Gucci or Tom Ford. He took the idea that it's about style and long-lasting style and not fashion. And we have fashion of clothing, but we also have fashion of rhetoric. And it's just fast, and it's a fad, and it's eye candy. There's very little substance. But with Ralph Lauren, there is an arc that transcends and it moves through the decades. There's a history and there's a story to it. This is something that we can learn from. All right, citizens in the United States, and it's looking like even citizens in France, need to get educated and cultured, but also have God, country, and family as a backbone of their ethos, and not this idea that of whatever I believe is whatever I believe. That everything's relative. Relativism in in postmodernism, I think, is breaking down society, and we need to get back to some fundamental roots and not get into the flashiness of quote fashion, of clothing, or the fashion of rhetoric, but actually have substance that moves through generations, that goes through decades, not just sound bites that people will forget in a year. It's too clickbaitish, too clicky. Right? And I feel as though this wokeism that is being projected in the Olympics is about shock value and getting eyeballs there and all that. But where's the culture? I want you to do an experiment. All right. Now, some people that listen to my channel may not be that culture, and maybe some are very cultured. But I want you to do an experiment, and you talk to people and see how cultured they are. and just observe. Maybe the people that you know, maybe the people that you're friends with, maybe it's just someone that you bump randomly at the grocery store or whatever. But pay attention to their culture, how they walk, how they talk, how they carry themselves, right? And you don't have to be pompous, but the thing is they elevate. You want to elevate your health, you want to elevate your educational bar, you want to become more cultured. That will make the society better. Where I think the society is going wrong is that we're losing proper etiquette, proper culture for shock value. You see this a lot in the podcasts, to get shock value, right? Now, of course, there's going to be people mad at certain moments in time because things can get really crazy, especially what happened in 2020. But the idea is that not everything is on fire and not everything is a Paul Revere moment. There are moments in time that are Paul Revere moments that may take place maybe once every 50 years or maybe 100 years or whatever. But the day-to-day news cycle, the day-to-day things that are happening in the world aren't a Paul Revere moment. And that's the difference between some people that want to think that everything's a Paul Revere moment and people like myself that realize that not everything is a Paul Revere moment, and those moments are very rare. And it may only happen once or at most twice in one's lifetime. All right. And you just, when that does come, you step up to the plate and do what you need to do. But because there's monetization of these of the news and of citizen journalism and all this, right? There's monetization, and it's about eyeballs. It's about shock value. So even independent podcasters trying to have op-ed pieces and stuff, it moves towards shock value and a loss of culture and etiquette. Like the Tates out there, like the Joe Rogans out there. Is Joe Rogan that smart? Not really. I mean, he's now doing commercials. If you notice, he's doing these like stupid voiceover commercials. He's already made $100 million. Why does he need to do voiceover commercials? So, assuming it's not an AI, who knows? But the thing is that everything is about monetization in this podcast world, and it falls into the trap of the Jerry Springer show. It falls into the trap of Tom Ford and what he had to do for getting shock value on the fashion shows, or McQueen and what he had to do for shock value. All right. But did it really push the envelope of fashion? Not so much. Not so much. Some people don't even know who McQueen was. Some people probably don't even know who Tom Ford is. Now, some people have heard about Gucci, but do you really know the fashion ethos of Gucci? But if you talk about Ralph Lauren, you understand the fashion ethos of Ralph Lauren because it connects to something deeper, something deeper. All right. And it's the same thing in politics or in history or in science, right? You gotta, don't do the Jerry Springer. Don't go down the woke path. And by doing that, when you do that, then what will happen is that you will you'll be revered as an intellectual and as someone that has culture and class, instead of the Jerry Springer. And unfortunately, in the podcast world, you have way too many Joe Rogan wannabes, way too many Tate wannabes. You have way too many people that are trying to monetize to get eyeballs you know, and that they're quote an expert on everything, right? There's few real polymaths out there, very few, right? And yeah, and it's just it just feeds on itself, and you get the flying monkeys and everything else, right? So it's important to have a foundation, a culture, a ethos, and a core of that is God, country, and family. So going back to the Olympics and the wokeism, there's a disrespect. Now, in this case, it was a disrespect, very poorly done, but a disrespect of actually the Last Supper from Da Vinci. Now, yes, the Last Supper is a Christian story of Jesus at the Last Supper before he is rounded up and executed, is put on the cross, and his apostles are, one of them is betraying him and all this. As a work of art, this is a genius work of art on many levels by Da Vinci. Okay, and he even was experimenting with different types of pigment for this. So he was there. It was actually it was experimental what he was doing. But the proportions and the movements of the body and all this, I mean, this is a work of art, let alone using art to capture a certain moment in time, the Last Supper, and is being disrespected by this loosely kind of motif that's similar, by maybe not exact. It's not exact. I don't think officially they were trying to make it exact, but it was about shock value because it's drag queens, and it's just something's just not right about the people that were making the event storyline and the costumes and the whole event sequence at the Paris Olympics. There's something, it's about shock value. It's the Tom Ford kind of era of Gucci, right? You once you try to monetize the body in such a way to just sell clothing. Well, this is, you do everything for shock value just to get eyeballs. This will collapse, just like it collapsed in the 90s, with the shock value, with the fashion shows. But this is disrespect to Da Vinci. It's disrespectful to religion, especially to Christianity. And it's disrespectful in this block ethos of God, country, and family. This is a disrespect of country and God, for sure. And there doesn't seem to be a real strong ethos of patriotism or history of France. France has amazing history. You don't see that in this Last Supper. It's very just it's in very poor taste. So this whole postmodernism, this whole relativism that's taking place in art and in costume design and all this stuff needs to be analyzed, and conservative viewpoints need to be heard on why this is devolving society with this kind of stuff. I mean, if you look at this, which one is more appealing to the eye? Well, obviously the Da Vinci than some drag queens at the Last Supper, or loosely affiliated Last Supper motif. Which one has more artistic mastery? Obviously Da Vinci, not whoever did the costume design for this or the set design for the Olympics. See what I mean? Where's the mastery? Where is the culture? Where's the style? Not the fashion. Where's the style? So let me continue with that video. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soaps that I have. I have many different varieties. This one is charcoal tea tree. But go to the store and see what I have available. Please get the 3 applicator set. It's a spritzer, dropper, and a nasal spray. They are great for the ones that haven't purchased them. When you purchase a Max 14 or Max 35 or even structural solution, that's the ppm of 30. This liquid, you take a teaspoon of it a day or a tablespoon if you're not feeling well, once or twice a day. You gargle with it 20 seconds, you swallow it, right? You do this every day. I use this every day, right? I take structural nano silver liquid every day. But if you need to travel or take it to work, just put it in these little containers and just put it in your bag. And so you'll be able to spray surfaces or spray the back of your tongue or put a dropper in your tongue. You can use it as a nasal spray. This is perfect to put it in a bag and be able to carry your structural nano silver. So please go to the store and get the structural nano silver liquids and the applicator set and the structural nano silver set. But part of kind of an anti-aging protocol is you can culture yourself. How can you improve? Can you can you properly eat at the table? Do you know how to properly set a table? Do you know how to actually, have proper etiquette and a vocabulary? This is important. We're moving into an era where we need people cultured, not decultured.
Fashion icons and drag queen Nikki Doll from the French version of RuPaul's Drag Race. One of them even looks like me on there. I think this was meant to be some sort of fashion show with a female DJ. Many called it a woke parody of Leonardo da Vinci's Blood Supper. It was shocking. On X, Elon Musk claimed the performance was extremely disrespectful to Christians, and I'm inclined to agree. Remember what happened with Charlie Hebdo? I can't imagine any other faith taking this lying down. The whole thing was bizarre. Attended by an estimated 600,000 spectators, it was a 4-hour show full of technical glitches, bad audio, and near torrential rain, with people joking that they really needed to stop the boats. 4 o'clock, let's welcome again at night.
Another thing when it comes to this postmodern wokeism, where it's all about the fashion and not so much about the style, is poor quality. You'll notice that it's about getting shock value, but the quality isn't there. Craftsmanship. Like I said, who is more of a master of the craft? Da Vinci or the set designers? Obviously Da Vinci, because you put the time in and you have a quality of a product. Quality is important. And it's not just the quality of your work that you do, the quality of your etiquette. These are all important. And so everyone can improve and become more cultured and have more, stop being so low class. Too many low class people. And the way to fight wokeism is to have a stronger affinity to God, country, and family, and to be cultured. And when you fight that, when you do that, you can fight this wokeism that's happening. Now, this culture issue is on both sides of the spectrum. The ultra liberal has lost culture and is devolving, but the ultra right also has lost culture. Right? So you don't want to be trailer trash, right? That only votes for Republican, and you don't want to be some sort of woke cheese eating Democrat. All right, there's wine cheese eating Republicans too, but that are ultra right. But the point here is that both sides of the spectrum have lost culture, right? And you can be understanding, and still hold your ground. But the problem is, I'm seeing on both sides of the spectrum, they're devolving. Trump is smart, but he's not cultured. He can afford a lot of nice things, and just because you have nice things doesn't mean you're cultured, right? Trump doesn't look like a person that reads very much. All right, I'll vote for him, but he's not a cultured guy. Ivanka looks like she looks like a cultured person. Trump doesn't look like a cultured guy. Donald J. Trump, probably because reading is a big part of culture. All right. And I don't think that he probably knows the nuances with certain types of artists, with painting or, so he's into marketing. He knows how to market himself. But he went to an Ivy League school. I mean, he's not stupid, but he's not cultured either. Right. And this is the reason why he can be the billionaire that he can eat a Big Mac with a union guy, a construction worker, and he wouldn't have a problem. And that is a skill, right? But the union guy and Trump, Donald J. Trump, need to be cultured. They need to, raise the bar, because that helps America in general. But there's this loss of culture.
Channel, broadcast from Congress Secondary, as a former Labour Party. I'm starting with you. Did you manage to observe the opening ceremony?
Sadly, I did. I was watching it kind of between my eyes, up behind the couch.
Oh.
Catastrophique is what I call it. And I think the French state should hang their heads in shame. I really do. They've not only insulted more than half of their own country, but the rest of the world. The Olympics is supposed to bring everyone together and unite. All this did was insult. And Leonardo da Vinci must be turning in his grave with that. I mean, what, by the way, if drag queens got to do with the Olympics? I was totally embarrassed. I think France should be embarrassed. And would they have done this to other faiths? Would they have done this, to Hindu, Islamic? And, I think it's really insulting as a Christian. I'm of Roman Catholic faith. And I was totally shocked. And so many others are too.
Well, I mean, I think it wasn't the most triumphant of opening ceremonies. I didn't see the whole thing. You've seen the clips, but as far as the controversial, selection of drag queens, I don't think it was insulting to Christianity at all. The Olympics should include everybody. If we believe that, then that should include drag queens. That should include having a bit of a laugh. I mean, I do think that the Olympics generally is massively overblown, and it should actually go back to its roots for being about sport and rather than every country trying to outdo itself in the opening ceremony.
Political, Hitler and all that. I mean, come on, it's been a massive political thing.
It has, but I think the more it's about sport, the less it's about sort of trying to put a country on the map, the better. I don't think Paris, which is the most visited city in the world, needed particularly to people are aware of it. Its brand image is pretty high without the Olympics. Interestingly, I was just looking at who's coming next, which is LA and then Brisbane in Australia. But the one afterwards, Stockholm in Sweden is bidding for it on a very scaled down, saying we're going to spend less money, we're going to concentrate on the sport, and try and do it in a more sustainable way, which seems to be quite a good idea.
But what about the fact that not only that, but they got things wrong like North Korea, South Korea?
That's unforgivable. I mean, I thought Dionysus looked like Papa Smurf, and I got confused.
Yeah,
there was a picture of him, but there's a different one. Yeah, but I don't know why that was a different shot. Yeah, he looked like Papa Smurf.
Yeah, and the thing, I got confused because I thought, hang on, the Smurfs are from Belgium. I've just been nice to the Belgians, but turned out it's meant to be Dionysus and they'll be nice to the Greek gods.
Yeah, but this is the Olympics. It's not musical theatre, Matthew. I was totally embarrassed.
We had the NHS, but Bedsley made an art.
I know they had a bit of rain, but I was there for the opening.
France has an amazing amount of history, going back to pre-French Charlemagne times, right? All the way to modern era. Now their politics is unstable, and I don't feel as though that they have a system of government that's as stable as the United States. I think there's wisdom that the founding fathers in the United States had right after the revolution that was lacking with the revolutions that were taking place in France. So I think that their government is more unstable. But they're hit that the amount of history, and they host the Tour de France, which has been happening over the last few weeks. They hosted the Le Mans race, the 24-hour Le Mans, which is a 24-hour race with cars, the hypercar and prototype cars and GT cars. So they have a huge history, an automotive history. They have a biking history. They have history of conflict, 2 major world wars, the Crusades, Charlemagne. I mean, just amazing amount of history. Then the products, that they have, in terms of wine and cheese industries, they have something to offer, but instead they were pushing a woke agenda. This is the problem with Macron. This is that there's this wokeism that's tied to him, and I think that it hurts the country. I think that I don't feel at least what has happened so far, it's not on the best cultural footing for France. And it was more about this postmodern fashion eye candy stuff that doesn't really promote the history and the culture of France. Right? Now, if that's the culture of France, then France is no doubt going to devolve into chaos. Right? But it's the problem is that you start talking to creatives, people that are in marketing or people that are in graphic art design and stuff. Many of them, not all of them, many of them are of this postmodern woke persuasion. And I think this is what's destroying Western culture. Now, Western culture has gotten us this far, in terms of technology and economics. But you keep on demonizing God, country, and family, and you're not going to have a very stable society.
In 2012, let me tell you, we were incredible next to this shambolic mess.
Well, what's the one for you with all the stuff there? People complaining in 2012 that the Olympics opening ceremony with their sort of hymn to the NHS and lots of kind of symbols of our industrial past was all a kind of woke Labour left-wing conspiracy.
Who gave the Woke Brigade charge of this whole event? They honestly, it was embarrassing and it was insulting.
I don't think it was for the best run ceremony ever, but I don't think that the problem with that was having a few drag queens in it for a couple of minutes. I think clearly their ambition trying to do it on the river. Trying to do it on the river was a little overambitious. So next time in 4 years we'll be back in the stadium.
But did they not think that would insult the Christian faith? Did they not think of that?
There is a
Would they have done that to any other faiths? I actually think it's appalling what they did, and I don't know who was in charge, but the French state should really have a good look at themselves today, because my friends that are also Jewish and other people who haven't got faith even said, why? Why did they do that?
Well,
do they want to be chic? Do they want to be in?
I thought the France did brilliantly yesterday after those appalling attacks to actually get some trains moving again in the afternoon, and they obviously, despite the rain and the few glitches, pulled off a ceremony which, if nothing else, was memorable.
Well,
the wrong reasons.
Yes, but perhaps the wrong reasons.
That's a perfect ending, because the females were absolutely right that were on that panel. It's memorable, but for the wrong reasons. Just like I said, the shock value. It's Jerry Springer. It's the Tom Ford. The the zenith period for
Get rewarded every
for
month on
Gucci-
rent,
Gucci.
travel, and other expenses around your neighborhood. Redeem points.
So they're right. You know, it's for the wrong reasons. And they did that on purpose. So you would get eyeballs and people would talk about it. You know, unfortunately, maybe we're feeding into the stupidity by commenting on how crazy it is. But all right, with that said, I want to do a critique of a video here. It's called The Deep State Explained. So I haven't seen the video, so we're going to do all this live, right? We're going to do this just off the cuff and see how it goes. But I think it'll be interesting because I think this dovetails really well in the videos I've been doing about Trump and the national security state and the power of the national security state.
The deep state vote Trump.
Hey, John. Hey, Hachi. I'm having a really hard time wrapping my head around this story. I'm not.
Yeah. And this concept of deep state has been so, I think, poisoned by politics and Trump sort of using it for everything that he doesn't like. And it kind of makes it hard to approach it earnestly. But I think we have to keep digging. Like, I think there's something here.
Is the deep state real?
Is the deep state real?
It's real. And the deep state actually goes all the way back to Lincoln. All right. Just the terms have been changed. This situation is that you have a consortium of people that are in power that work behind the scenes to try to overthrow people or assassinate people, or in modern times, do a manufactured consensus and move people into a certain direction. This is the whole Smith Modernization Act. And that technology has helped this along. But there was a deep state with the Confederate after the Civil War with Southern states trying to circumvent Congress. There, you know, after Lincoln's assassination, that carried on for 100 years, all the way to Lyndon Johnson and JFK. So the deep state has been there for a long time. It's just the terms, just powerful senators or powerful congressmen or powerful states that could slow down or prevent certain civil rights legislation. There is a lobby group that has gotten stronger over the years as part of the deep state. The military-industrial complex that Eisenhower was talking about. So Eisenhower came in after Truman. He was, you know, questioning this. JFK said that of secret societies and a government that could circumvent the will of the people. That's another way of saying deep state. Deep state has been around for more than 100 years. All right. It's just that it's morphed on how we describe it. Now, this thing here that they have as a graphic here, I'll read it. It's a quote. "It was a social thing, my dear fellow. I never received $1. I never signed a secrecy agreement. I didn't have to. I've done things for them when I thought they were the right thing to do. I call it doing my duty as a citizen." This is from Joe Alsop on working for the CIA as a journalist. Working for the CIA as a journalist. Interesting. Smith modernization.
There's this moment in the 60s where you really like see how this actually works, like where power really is. To the height of this moment where the US and the Soviet Union are in this like massive staring contest. There's nuclear weapons involved. Everyone thinks the entire globe could be wiped out in this conflict. And Cuba is centered right in the middle of it.
Before we continue, it's really important that this started to really take hold during Truman's administration, where he starts the CIA. He didn't want to do it. And he also was part of Operation Paperclip because he needed the technology coming from Germany, but he had this edict that stated that no one that was a Nazi should be coming into the country. So the CIA was whitewashing some of these things, right? So, you know, this whole deep state operation type stuff is really taking hold in a modern form during the Truman administration. And what was going on in the Truman administration? The beginnings of the Cold War.
Right off the coast of the US, but they're on the Soviet side of the conflict. The US at this point wants nothing more than to snatch Cuba, to make it their own. And they've been trying to kill Fidel Castro a million different ways. They're looking for an excuse to invade. And to push back on all of this, the Soviets actually start shipping nuclear weapons to the island. The US has no idea until one day a spy plane is flying over the island and they snap this wild photo. I mean, it doesn't look like a wild photo, it just looks like a random field in Cuba. But you zoom in and you see canvas tents, trailers, missile launch equipment. I mean, the US government immediately knows what they're looking at here. The world's most destructive weapons are actually hiding under these tents, ready to launch, sitting right in the United States backyard, right off the coast. Nuclear war 103 miles away.
Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island.
It's a crisis, a Cuban missile crisis. And one man in Washington, D.C. suddenly has a really difficult decision to make. Everyone around him wants him to.
Now remember, how did they get that far? Well, again, it is Truman and Eisenhower. Eisenhower had a plan in place before he left office where there was this operation to overthrow Cuba. And the military might have been support. When I say military, our US military might have been used as support, air support, if things went wrong. But the CIA thought that they could handle it. And obviously the Bay of Pigs happened and there was a big fiasco. But you need to go like, why did that happen? Okay, Eisenhower had this plan and that it was going to transition into a new administration that was Kennedy's administration. Now, most likely, they didn't think that Kennedy, while this was all happening, they didn't think that Kennedy would win, right? So, you know, you're talking about that they were thinking that maybe this would go to Nixon, a Republican, all right? So the deep, quote, the deep state thought that everything would be copacetic and that military operations, if things got hot and heavy, would be, it would be more of a conventional means instead of some sort of covert CIA means, right? So this change of the guard between Eisenhower and Kennedy, you know, put a little bit of a roadblock in there. But it looked like Kennedy was willing to do it, but without the military support. The CIA thought that they could corner Kennedy and do the military support, and he said no. Now, why did Eisenhower have this take with Cuba? Well, going back to Truman, the previous president before Eisenhower, Truman had this policy of using the CIA as a way to overthrow governments that may be potentially teetering towards communism or towards the Soviet Union. And so Truman was overthrowing governments or doing operations through the CIA to do this. Saying Cuba was in this orbit of operations. So, it's interesting that they're only focusing on the Cuban Missile Crisis, at least in the first 3 minutes of this video. But this thing's really starting with the start of the CIA and with Truman telling the CIA to overthrow governments. Now, just a fact, which I think is interesting, Truman was the 33rd president of the United States, and also he was also a Freemason. I thought he was a 33-degree Freemason. In addition, Democrat. So the deep state really takes hold in its modern form through the Democratic Party.
Cuba, but he's not sure. Okay, but here's the kicker of the whole thing. Instead of stay at work that night and figure out this crisis with his advisors, Kennedy gets in a car and travels across town to a cocktail party.
He came here to a house in Georgetown, the home of Joe Alsop, one of the nation's most influential newspaper columnists. It was the eve of nuclear war, and the President of the United States kept his dinner date in Georgetown. And the reason why is because at that party were the people he trusted, the people who really had power in Washington during that time. Most of them lived here, in this neighborhood, many of them side by side, all within a few blocks.
William Colby, the Far East chief of the CIA, who would later become the director of the agency. Chip Bolin, a former ambassador to the Soviet Union. Alan Dulles, who, Alan Dulles, where to even start, is the CIA's longest running director. He lived right here in Georgetown. Frank Wiesner, one of the founding officers of the CIA. He lived just 6 blocks away. Felix Frankfurter, a Supreme Court justice, just a couple minutes walk away. And Kennedy himself had a house in this neighborhood. The reason JFK kept his date in Georgetown that night was because this is where power in Washington was. On the other side of town from the Capitol building, the seat of American democracy. The decisions were being made here by unelected men who had an immense amount of secret power. These were powerful.
Hey guys, J.D. Vance here in Radford, Virginia. I thought I'd take you behind the scenes a little bit. When you get to an event, they've got a ton of crap for you to drink and eat. You got some tea bottles that I have to.
These were powerful men who were not elected or accountable. And at this point, they'd become drunk on the worst kind of power, the secret sort of power that corrupts, the kind of power that our founders sought to check and balance with all of their founding documents.
But here in Georgetown, it had moved beyond anything the designers of the country could have predicted, into a shadowy, separate part of our government, a deep state
that was actively blackmailing the Congress and working to undermine the President of the United States, and being horrifyingly successful at it.
Unelected deep state operatives who defy the voters to push their own secret agendas.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back.
Remember the previous video I did in the series? I talk about how Trump is more in line with JFK than Reagan. Trust me on this. Dr. Paul Cottrell is usually not wrong. And oh, by the way, I have a cup that says I'm never wrong. All right. Now, obviously, it's not that I'm never wrong. I'm right most of the time. All right. But this is for laughs. But But the point here is that when my inner sense picks up on something, you got to pay attention, because when that happens, it's usually right. All right, and it is profound. And my spider sense is saying that Trump is more like JFK. Now, I hope that nothing ill happens to Trump, but we are moving towards where that quote deep state is going to be really scared about what he may do. Now, he may back off. He has a tendency to, go to the edge and then not do it. So maybe his bark is, bigger than his bite. Who knows? But JFK and Trump are tied at the hip.
So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do
As
this.
far as I know, we don't engage in assassinations and kidnappings and things of that kind. I do think there have to be serious questions raised about some of the foreign policy blunders that this country has had over the last 20 to 25 years.
There's some truth in the idea that there is an ongoing group of people who continue the work of government as administrations come and go. Is it possible for these entities to go rogue? Absolutely.
Was the agency involved in the kind of domestic surveillance that has been portrayed in the news reports?
My feeling is it is not.
Okay, I'm doing this. The deep state. Is the deep state real? And if so, what is it? Before we do that, I want to take a moment to say thank you to our sponsor. NordVPN is a longtime sponsor of our channel. We couldn't make this work if we didn't have sponsors like Nord. NordVPN is a tool that we use to surf the internet more securely. A VPN allows you to connect to the internet in more secure ways, or to route your connection to a different country. Secret stuff happening when you are surfing the web. Nord helps make has other useful tools like NordPass, which is a password manager. You can get this together with NordVPN if you choose months of free NordVPN when you sign up for the 2-year plan, and a 30-day money-back guarantee. And you can start using NordVPN today at a discount. Thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring today's video. So, we ready, Nick? What kind of sweet pudgy are you? Okay, did you inherit this? Did you start by introducing yourself, who you are, and what you do, and what your relationship to this topic of the history of the CIA is?
Yeah, so my name's Jefferson Morley. I'm a journalist in Washington. I've been a journalist in Washington for the last 40 years.
In the old days, spy agencies were a war thing. When the US was at war, it would set up an international spy operation to best wage that war. And then when the war was over, they would pare down or totally get rid of the spy agency. The thinking here was that a spy agency took up a lot of resources and threatened civil liberties. A lot of power concentrated into a bunch of unelected people. Worth it during war, not worth it during peace. But then the biggest war of them all came to America's Pacific doorstep, and it changed everything.
So Roosevelt now has a license, more of a license to do what he wants. And one of the first things he does is consult with a man named Bill Donovan.
Wild Bill, a corporate Wall Street lawyer who was obsessed with the power of intelligence.
Donovan had very strong opinions, and he said, you need a wartime intelligence because you're going to war.
Wild Bill Donovan would be in charge of the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, a centralized intelligence agency that would be given immense power to do whatever it took to keep our people safe and to keep our team on top. This was the birth of modern intelligence, a euphemism for spying and lying and cheating and deceiving and sneaking and breaking, coercing, dividing, and conquering. No idea was too crazy for the OSS during this time. Like, one OSS psychologist had this idea that Hitler could be demoralized if they just showed him a vast quantity of porn.
Paramilitary operation.
Strapping explosives to a bunch of bats and letting them loose over Tokyo.
Guys skiing into Nazi-occupied Norway.
Making fake companies, recruiting off Wall Street from all of his old colleagues, bringing in bankers and movie directors, fake radios.
The fake banks and the fake companies carried on after the war, and that helped with these conduits, with supporting old Nazi officers to help reboot actually Germany.
Anything to demoralize, divide, or confuse the enemy.
The OSS is the first intelligence agency that the United States ever has.
Oh, and one of Wild Bill's favorite things to do was to have parties at his house.
Are we the first ones here?
A big night.
Plan and plot is up.
Too many advertisements.
$10 can help
Gosh,
fund
she's so
powerful
annoying.
ads to reach undecided voters nationwide. $10 can help.
The plan and plot is up.
Instead of donating to the Democratic Party your $10, please go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and donate $10 on Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. That helps support my work because I have thousands of free videos out there. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the all-natural deodorants that I have. I have citrus, and I have peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. They're made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It has no aluminum and no baking soda in it. It helps to slowly detoxify your body. You use it every day. This deodorant is for males and females. In addition, we have also developed a even better bar. This is a skincare bar that you can use every day, or you can just use it on wounds. But it's a multi-purpose bar. It's made from the essential oils from the Himalayas. It's all natural. And what you do is, if you want to do it as just a daily skin routine, you rub it on your skin. You can rub it on your face. And what you'll notice is that your skin will get softer and smoother if you apply it every day. You can put it on a wound or an abrasion, minor burn, and it'll help to heal it quicker. You can put it on acne. And in addition, if you pull a muscle, or if you have a muscle ache, just rub it on the muscle and it'll relieve the pain. So use this Even Better bar every day as a skincare product, but the Even Better bar is multi-purpose. So go to the store and get this. Get a couple bars of this. This is a very high quality product. All right. So, and please go to the store and take a look at the supplements I offer. Vitamin D3, it helps to, so it'll help to bring in the calcium, absorb the calcium, and it's a gene expression cofactor. This gene expression cofactor will help with cellular processes, but it will also get rid of cells that need to go through apoptosis, especially if they're infected. So D3 taking every day is very important for your health. So go to the store and get the vitamin D3. Lignans, very important to boost up your immune system. It is for males and females in a post-2020 era. People need to start taking supplements that boost up your immune system. You need a healthy immune system. Trust me on this, incidences of cancer are going up. You need a good immune system. So take the lignans every day from my store. It's a powder, mix it with your food. It also helps males and females have proper hormonal balance. So this is a dual product, dual use product, dual functional product. Again, I like being able to offer to my customers dual use type things. So lignans will help boost up your immune system, but also help to have the proper hormonal health for males and females. Really important. When you get your endocrine system in balance, in homeostasis, and you help to improve your immune system, your body is getting healthier. Your body is starting to be able to fight disease better. And you slow down that aging process. So go to my store and get the lignans.
With his friends in Georgetown. a neighborhood in Washington, D.C. that is strikingly beautiful. Here is Bill Donovan's house. It's now worth $17 million. It's beautiful. And this is where he would have a drink and chat with other Washington power brokers. He would recruit new agents from American high society, earning the agency the nickname Oh So Social. Pretty clever. Okay, but remember that spy agencies like this were a war thing only. And the war ended in 1945. And the OSS got dissolved.
The forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations.
What do we do with the OSS now that we're at peace? And Truman says, we don't want to risk having an American Gestapo.
A political police.
His meaning, especially in the context of having just defeated the Nazis, was, that's what led our enemy astray. They had a secret intelligence agency, the Gestapo, which wound up enforcing political norms and enforcing tyranny. And we don't want to risk that.
Here's Harry Truman doing the right thing and signing a piece of paper that says that the OSS can no longer exist. I mean, Truman was freaked out. He's like, this was really great to help us win the war, but this is way too much power in the hands of unelected officials holding secret information. But it was kind of
This
too
is
late.
where Truman was right on the edge of doing the right thing, and then he was pushed over to do the wrong thing because he ushers in the CIA after that.
The genie back in the bottle would prove to be an impossible task. Is it significant that all these guys live 4 blocks from each other in Georgetown?
Yeah, it's very significant because they're the product of this wartime culture.
This is one party that just has to turn out right.
Here is target number 1 for the Reds. Who's in the bullseye? You are.
So there was a brief moment after World War II when the Cold War didn't exist. We were at peace. But then, almost immediately, tension started to rise between these two great empires that had been allies to defeat the Nazis, but were now skeptical of each other. And senators were suddenly declaring that it was impossible to know where war begins and where it ends.
The Soviet Union and its agents have destroyed the independence and democratic character of a whole series of nations in Eastern and Central Europe.
And this is when all the intel people that had run the OSS, many of them who lived in Georgetown, by the way, start calling for the resurrection of the OSS, a centralized intelligence agency that we can use to fight this new global war with the Soviet Union. But no, say a bunch of other lawmakers, the Constitution wasn't designed for us to put so much power in the hands of men who are doing secret things. Doing this will result in a police state run by power-grabbing bureaucrats. Too much power to military leaders and their insatiable appetite for more money, for more men, and more power, whatever the cost to democracy.
Truman's mind changed. And what changed Truman's mind was the growing confrontation with the Soviet Union.
And soon the papers were signed and a new agency was formed, the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA.
When Truman signs the National Security Act, he says, we have to be careful that we don't have an American Gestapo. So that thought is still on his mind.
The CIA was the big, shiny new weapon of the United States in the Cold War. And their mission was to, quote, gain and distribute intelligence and to perform, quote, other functions and duties related to intelligence affecting national security. What does that mean?
Everybody knew what that language meant. Everybody knew that that was, and we just weren't going to talk about it because we didn't want to write it down on paper.
Like, what do they do with this vague mandate of national security?
Oh boy, they go to town. Operation Paperclip, 1945 to 1959. Americans wanted to get those Nazi rocket scientists on their side so that they could develop their own rocket capacity. James Angleton, for example, protects a general under Hitler.
CIA gets involved in the Italian
elections, 1948. His thumb on the Italian democracy to make sure that U.S. allies win.
Operation Ajax, coup in Iran, 1953.
The CIA and the MI6 organized a coup to overthrow the democratically elected government.
Now that we encourage the Shah to take that action, I will not deny.
CIA coup Guatemala, 1954. Of course, bananas.
Again, democratically elected government, reformists wanting to engage in land reform, the CIA overthrows it, really at the behest of the United Fruit Company.
CIA is now helping American corporations.
The influence of American corporations on the CIA actions.
So this is an important piece of the puzzle here. CIA comes into existence because of the Cold War that's emerging during the Truman administration. But you also have a growing lobby group that is starting to gain power too. And this is why I said the deep state, it's not just intelligence agencies. The deep state goes all the way back to the Civil War, all right? Because you had these strong senators in Congress and governors of southern states preventing legislation for civil liberties, for racial liberties, and civil rights things after the Civil War. They were stonewalling this stuff. So there was this contingency that was stopping the United States to becoming a more perfect union, to use a phrase by Lincoln. But you also have the deep state is deep governors, deep senators from different locales, especially the southern states. Right? This is where the Democrats are coming from. But you also have deep agriculture. Well, deep agriculture, those are all that also involve many southern states too. So we had this confluence of intelligence gathering and that intelligence agency ballooning out. And then you also have this lobbying group that's starting to gain more power in Congress. And then now, all of a sudden, the lobbying group is using the CIA as their own militia.
Unmistakable. Alan Dulles is on the board of directors. Howard Hunt, Birch O'Neill, David Phillips, CIA coup in Congo, early 1960s, CIA coup in Chile, 1973. The assassination operation against General Schneider in 1970 is coordinated with Kissinger's office.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Mind control experiments, MK Ultra.
In 1950, the CIA launches a massive program to develop means of controlling people's minds. Some 40 U.S. academic institutions were involved in this kind of
LSD to people without their permission.
Can we develop a truth zone? Dosing somebody with LSD 60 times in a week. NSA's Operation Shamrock, electronic surveillance, 1945 to 1975. The first warrantless wiretap.
God, Biggs, nightmare.
There were hundreds of CIA assassination plots.
Operation Phoenix.
Eventually, Bill Colby, who was later director, admitted that they had killed 20,000 people.
Operation Mockingbird,
COINTELPRO,
Operation Chaos, Watergate, Jim Critchfield, Frank Wiesner, James Angleton, Roosevelt, John Foster Corey,
CIA coup in Indonesia, CIA coup in Greece, CIA involvement in the Guatemalan Civil War. It was a CIA crime spree for 20 years. There's no other way to describe it.
So by the 1970s, the CIA is this powerful, well-funded machine of intelligence that is doing a lot of secret things all around the world. They start blackmailing lawmakers to scare them away from investigating them and reining them in.
These agencies had harmful personal information on lots of people. When I was doing my Angleton book, a guy told me one day when he went to meet Angleton, Angleton quoted back to him what he had said to his wife in bed the night before. And so they had this capacity, and people knew that they had this capacity. The Kennedys knew that J. Edgar Hoover had information about his affairs. with various women.
I used to get so stressed out about when I was going to do everything that was on my task list until I figured out how to get AI to schedule my day. So
This kind of knowledge that they had, Hamilton and Hoover were masters at using those kind of secrets as leverage. Kennedy had this thing hanging over his head, and he knew Hoover, had that on him, and so, he couldn't fire Hoover.
And so much of this power is concentrated among just a few people, many of them not elected, and many of them living right here along these streets in this neighborhood of Georgetown, living in fancy homes, having fancy cocktail parties, and kind of running the Western world. It's exactly the nightmare of the founders of the country and the nightmare of President Truman.
And 1 month after the assassination of President Kennedy, Harry Truman publishes an article in the Washington Post and says the CIA should be abolished.
Wow.
And he says it has cast a shadow on the historical reputation of the United States.
The man who signed.
We have to go to commercial for PNN. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And if you're worried about the CIA and it can't, stop its encroachment in your life, and you can't get sleep, you need to go to my store and get the Goodnight formula. Why? Because it has tryptophan and melatonin in it and many other ingredients that helps your body to rest. Why do you need that? You need 3 cycles of REM sleep for consolidation of memory, to detoxify your body, and to build up the energies through resting. So when you wake up, you're going to be well rested. People that have chronic problems sleeping have problems with energy levels, with memory, and their body is filled with toxins, especially the central nervous system. There have been studies that have shown that chronic deprivation of REM sleep can lead to dementia. So it's very important to get sleep. Sleep heals the body. Sleep helps the mind. Sleep detoxifies the body. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Goodnight formula. This is a very high quality product. All my products are high quality. So, and take this, and you're going to get those REM cycle sleeps and move towards that journey of proper health and vitality. Multivitamin. I have a multivitamin on my store. It's a very high quality multivitamin, and it's easy to digest. Take this every day. Why? Because the ingredients in this multivitamin are cofactors for enzymatic activity. If you don't have enough of these cofactors, you have subpar cellular processes in metabolism. So you need the multivitamin. So take it every day as part of your daily routine. I have a probiotic in powder form and in a tablet form or capsule form. And that capsule form, you just take every day. But in the powder form, which is the one I have in my hand, there's a little scooper here, and you just mix it with your food. I mix it in the afternoon with my lunch, and because I eat hummus on my lunch, so just mix it with your food, and it'll help with the gut biome. Why is that important? You'll be able to absorb energy better. You're going to have a better liver by doing this because it's increasing the communication and the metabolism between your gut and your liver, and a better communication between your gut and your brain. And mood and brain function is tied to gut health. Also, good gut health improves skin. So you want to improve your brain, your skin, your liver, very important, and your ability to absorb nutrients. So get the probiotics that I have in my store, either in the capsule form or in the powder form.
The piece of paper that created the CIA comes out and says he regrets it. Eventually, Americans start to get savvy to the fact that their government is sort of going off the rails. As this war in Vietnam drags on, more and more Americans stand up and say enough, demanding accountability for a national security apparatus that had gotten out of control. And what does the government do in response? They start spying on the protesters.
Operation Chaos was the CIA spying on the anti-war movement. Johnson calls in Dick Helms and says, what's going on? The communists have to be behind this. And so they start infiltrating the anti-war movement.
And so this is happening in the anti-war movement in the 60s. All right. But the same thing happened just recently in 2020, where they were using social media to curtail your freedom of speech and then to track you. And they use social media to see who your social network with, and they'll put you into a security net. They're looking for someone, and they look at not just 1 degree of separation, they're looking at 3 degrees of separation. They're out of control. The national security state needs to be abolished. But, Americans don't do anything about it. They just, listen to podcasters like myself, and they just don't do anything about it. If you want to abolish the national security state, first of all, you need to get rid of your brain fog. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. That will reduce the brain fog and allow your neurons to be firing faster. You're going to have better neural connections. Your memory is going to be improved. You're going to have your thinking will be faster. And by doing that on a regular basis, you're improving your neural health. So please go to my store and get the clarity factor, because you need to improve your neural health. You got to view your body as not just the body. It's separate organ systems that are communicating. You got to improve your liver. You need to improve your kidney. You need to improve your brain. You need to improve your heart. You need to improve your cardiovascular system. You need to improve your bone structure, your muscle structure. You need to improve your eyes and your digestion and all that, your GI tract. So it's system-based. So go to my store and get the clarity factor. It's going to improve your brain function. That way you can fight the deep state.
And they come back in about a year and they say, well, Moscow and the North Vietnamese, they really like this anti-war movement, but it's not controlled by them. It's not funded by them. It's pretty much an American thing, but that doesn't change anything. And chaos continues to grow. And eventually by 1970, there's 30 officers working on it, hundreds of agents. And, the ostensible purpose of chaos to detect the foreign hand. I mean, chaos was in existence for 7 years. Every time they were asked to report on it, they came back and said, it's not foreign controlled and it's not foreign funded, which was obvious to anybody who was involved in the anti-war movement. There were a lot of people inside the CIA saying, we're spying on our wives and kids, basically. They're going to the demonstrations and we're reading the reports at night. We shouldn't be doing that.
Are we planning to exterminate an entire people? What have we become as a nation?
Americans were waking up to the fact that these unelected men were wielding way too much power and spying not only on the entire world, but on Americans themselves.
Hey guys, J.D. Vance here in Radford, Virginia. We've got a great rally here. People are excited about President Donald J. Trump and getting him back in office to promote peace and
We have been victimized by excessive secrecy, not only with respect to the failure of the Congress in the past to exercise proper surveillance over intelligence activities, but also excessive secrecy has created this kind of mischief within the executive branch.
Senator Frank Church helped lead the charge of taking all of these secrets and excesses and thrusting them onto the national stage and shining a light on them.
There has never been a full public accounting of FBI domestic intelligence operations.
The American people are learning for the first time just how bad this was. 800 witnesses, 10,000 documents, where their secrets were shared. CIA, FBI, NSA, assassination plots.
Does this pistol fire the dark? Yes, it does, Chairman. When it fires silently, almost silently, yes.
Spying on Americans.
A wholly comprehensive listing of everything those people thought or did on any subject you can imagine they're having a concern with.
Targeting people like Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights or feminist activists.
Bureau agents were told to attack the New Left by disinformation and misinformation.
Anti-war protesters were spied on, intimidated.
COINTELPRO is the name for the effort by the Bureau to destroy people and to destroy organizations, or as they use the words, disrupt and neutralize. The Bureau went so far as to mail anonymous letters to Dr. King and his wife. King, there is only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You have just 34 days in which to do it. You are done.
That was taken by Dr. King to mean a suggestion for suicide, was it not?
That's our understanding, Senator.
The CIA's LSD mind control experiments were also detailed to the public.
One of the first things they come across is the MK Ultra papers.
And so were the FBI and CIA's attempts to infiltrate the free press, planting journalists within our newspapers. We would later learn in some investigative reporting that this infiltration of the free press was much more widespread than Church even discovered.
He reported that up to 400 journalists had been paid by the CIA under Operation Mockingbird, and there's no doubt that
Anderson Cooper. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric. This is an antioxidant, but it also brings down inflammation. Very important, because by bringing down inflammation, your body's going to be healing. And you also take it with ashwagandha that controls the blood glucose levels that reduces inflammation in your vascular system. When you do this on a regular basis, you're going to slow down that inflammation. You're going to be controlling your blood glucose levels, and you're going to be slowing down the aging process. You're going to allow the body to be healing. And by reducing that pro-inflammatory response, you're actually healing and boosting up your immune system. Also take my resveratrol. Why? Because it gets rid of senescent cells. When you do this and you couple it with C60, you're going to slow down that aging process, and your tissues are going to be younger. All right? So take resveratrol and couple it with C60. Now, what is C60? C60 is a very strong antioxidant. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration, either in extra virgin olive oil, MCT coconut oil, or in avocado oil. You take a teaspoon of it a day, you take it every day, and what that will do is it will neutralize the free radicals in your cells and boost up the mitochondrial health, and you'll have more ATP, you'll have more energy. And when you do this on a regular basis, you're going to notice that your skin is better, your eyesight's better, your hair is healthier, and your metabolism is better. It's just your overall body is soaking up all those free radicals that you built up, and that by doing that, your body is now healing and aging slower. Before your workout, take it before the workout. It's best when you take it on an empty stomach for better absorption, but you'll recover quicker after your workout when you take C60. So get it in the 2 ounce, the 4 ounce, or the 8 ounce configuration, either in extra virgin olive oil, MCT coconut oil, or avocado oil.
a massive effort and effective.
The church committee made a few things clear. Number one, that indeed a group of unelected government employees used immense power and resources of the United States government to pursue programs that were illegal, unethical, and generally out of line with American values and norms. And they did it in secret, outside of any sort of accountability, partly because the US Congress wanted to give them money and turn a blind eye.
I can recall members of Congress who recoil from responsibility of knowing what was happening. Members of Congress who said, "Don't tell me, I don't want to know." I think that is an indictment of the Congress, just as severe as any indictment which is labeled against any of the intelligence community.
When Dulles wanted to get approval for the CIA budget, all he had to do was take a top line number to the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he would say, "This is what we want for this year." And the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee would say, "Okay, that's what you've got, and please don't tell us anything about what you're doing with it." And so there was no internal challenge to this world of CIA people.
But here's the other thing that is so crucial here, which is that when you listen to these hearings, you see people who thought they were doing the right thing, who thought that they were doing what they needed to protect the country during a very scary time.
After a 30-year period, all of a sudden you woke up one morning and here was this creature that had been created that no one along the line had ever really contemplated. Each of these steps that I think initially were innocent, honest steps.
Many of these agents were earnest patriots, but they were operating in a system free of accountability and transparency.
Even within the deep state, there are people who are doing things for altruistic and good reasons, and then there are people who are doing things for their own selfish or bad reasons, and exactly how many are in each category is sort of impossible to delineate.
I got sucked in when I should have known better, and where many other more intelligent, sophisticated people got stuck in other areas.
So after the church committee, all kinds of new oversight regulations come in. There's new committees formed, there's new regulations, and suddenly the intelligence community now finally has some kind of oversight. The deep state was reined in. Now, they did fight back. Church was undermined and intimidated by these agencies.
CIA people, I mean, they hated Frank Church. Jim Angleton would go around and say Frank Church was a KGB agent. Dick Helms raged against him. Kissinger. They couldn't believe that U.S.
Now, you
intelligence
notice
was being...
that there's a similarity between the church hearings in the 70s, 1975, I think it was, and fast forward to today. You start going against the CIA or the FBI, and you're just a Russian spy. Sound familiar with what the agencies were doing to Trump?
Yeah. On the other hand, Americans were like, "Oh my God, this is what was being done in our name."
But overall, this is a story of American democracy doing what it's supposed to do, rein in the worst impulses of humans with power, and in the process, avoiding disaster, at least for a few decades.
One of you is about to be elected the leader of the single most powerful nation in the world. Have you formed any guiding principles for exercise of this enormous power?
When it comes to foreign policy, that would be my guiding question. Is it in our nation's interests? Peace in the Middle East is in our nation's interests. Having a hemisphere that is free for trade.
Just one day before the attempted assassination.
Isn't this ironic that it's actually RFK Jr.'s ad that pops up while we're covering the CIA, deep state? But before we go to his commercial, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the B-complex vitamin. This is very important, especially the first 5 vitamins help with the mitochondria and boost up your energy levels. But this helps with cellular metabolism. So you should be taking this every day. Add it to your daily routine. It's a very high quality B complex. So please go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. To improve your skin and your immune system, take the vitamin C and the magnesium. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose of this. But you should be taking this every day. You should be drinking filtered water. And by drinking filtered water and vitamin C, you're going to improve your skin. Especially if you take the collagen powder that I have on my store, because the vitamin C and the collagen are going to cross-link and help with the dermal layer of your skin. So, and then taking collagen helps with your bones and your your joints and your tendons and your ligaments. So it's really important to be taking collagen and vitamin C. So please go to the store and get the collagen and the vitamin C. Digestive enzymes, really important to break down carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. That will help with the absorption and reduce the load on your pancreas, because your pancreas produces these enzymes. As we get older, our pancreas doesn't function as well. So it's really important to supplement these digestive enzymes to help with breaking down our food products. And by doing that, we'll be able to do better absorption, especially when you take the probiotic. In addition, if you're working out, by taking this is going to help with the recovery of the workout. So please go to the store and get the digestive enzyme complex. This has fibrinolytic and proteinolytic enzymes in it. The proteinolytic enzymes helps to break up glycoproteins. That's important because we know what's, on surfaces of things that happen to be released in 2020, which is glycoproteins, right? So you can break up those proteins with the digestive enzymes that are in this. But in addition, there's an enzyme in here that will help break up fibrin, and that's important to help break up a clot. So there's fibrinolytic enzymes in here to help break up clots. So you should be taking this on a regular basis, not just for breaking down proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates and to absorb that nutrition, but to help get through the aftershock of 2020. Take my advice. If not, it's your own peril.
I gave a speech in Las Vegas calling for a unity government. I think most Democrats and Republicans know deep down that this toxic polarization is unsustainable. Crises always.
Some very, very sketchy details reaching us here at Sky Central.
A new threat. And the new call to give power to professional spies and bureaucrats to keep us safe by doing secret things.
And by passing the Patriot Act, we will make America safer while safeguarding our civil liberties and privacy.
And then, of course, new agencies.
And during the 2020 crisis, it launched a series of policies that gave more government authority, what I call the BioPatriot Act. And it has many different pillars in terms of controlling the economy, in terms of controlling your health, in terms of controlling social media, the ushering in of passports, inoculation passports, a lot of things, right? Circumventing freedom of speech on social media. So what happened in 9/11, or right after 9/11 with the Patriot Act, was supercharged in different forms through the BioPatriot Act. Now, it's not called the BioPatriot Act. It's not wrapped up in a bow. It's called the BioPatriot Act. It has elements of these things in different legislation and in different agencies. It's really run through agencies, so it's harder to see it. But there is an administrative state that grew out of the crisis of 2020, and part of it's military, and part of it is HHS, part of it is the CDC, and the FDA. It's a big problem. And they're going to be ushering in digital currency, which will help with social scoring. So it's a big problem with it. We didn't learn the lessons from 9/11, and we allowed it to happen. This is the reason why I kept on saying that you have to push back, but people didn't push back, and now you have lost social freedoms and have not shut down the facilities that make these pathogens. didn't take the advice, and now we have a big problem.
Variations on the same name.
9/11 is kind of like a Pearl Harbor. There's this desire, we've been attacked, anything goes, we have to strike back. This is an existential struggle. And that same ethos of the early Cold War, anything goes, that returns big time after 9/11. And the CIA seeks or asserts, without being checked, all sorts of powers that they hadn't asserted before. They implement the torture program. They massively expand the warrantless wiretapping, the kind of things that we had seen Angleton do in Chaos. Those exact same techniques are revived and expanded after 9/11 at a very large scale.
Taxpayers funneling money into millions of new top secret jobs. 22 Capitol buildings worth of new office space that spring up all around this area where I live to house all these new secrets. And inside them, waterfalls of new programs, so many weirdly named programs that no one leader could ever hear about, let alone regulate all of them.
There's not a whole lot of effective oversight on something that has grown so big and so bushy.
And none of which should be known to the public. That is, until someone who's worried that history is repeating itself decides to spill the beans.
Our breaking news this evening is the identity of the man who sent the Obama administration into defend and explain mode this week. His name is Edward Snowden. He's an American former CIA employee and computer technician. Today he came out as the leaker of classified NSA documents that spell out these secrets.
And we all kind of wonder, what if we actually need this now? What if we need all these dark windows and top secret PowerPoint decks where they design how they're going to spy on us? What if our safety relies on what happens inside of all these buildings? So we keep funding them. But in doing so, we must at least acknowledge what we're doing here. We are trading a portion of our freedom in exchange for a sense of security. And in the process, we're creating and feeding kind of a new branch of our government power. One that operates outside of this elegant triangle that the founders constructed to trip up the corrupting forces that run the risk of always possessing men with secret power.
Most everybody agrees that there's overclassification, there's way too much information that's classified, but information is power, and the fewer people that have it, the more power the people that do have it have.
And the result is that when the most powerful man in the world arrives to the most powerful house in the world, promising to rein all of this in, to rein in the excesses, he actually finds that he can't. He's not able to change much of it. Instead, he sits there and watches much of the things that he critiqued grow under his watch. The thing that he's supposed to control, he finds he doesn't have that much control over.
These targeted strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorists are indeed ethical and just.
Secrets keep us safe, but secrets also degrade this delicate thing that we have called democracy and accountability. That is, until we save ourselves from their everlasting seductive pull.
The United States must not adopt the tactics of the enemy. Means are as important as ends. Crisis makes it tempting to ignore the wise restraints that make men free.
So I think that was a good kind of like mini documentary. But please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the new products that I have. I have olive leaf extract. This helps with the immune system and the circulatory system. So take this every day. In addition, I have a detoxifying zeolite that you can take every day. You can take a drop of this every day. Some people do that and just take it throughout the year. Others will take it over only, over a month period or so, a few drops, and take the whole bottle. And once the bottle's done, they're done for their detox for the year. Sometimes they do it twice a year. I'm of the type to detox once or twice a year with the zeolite. Some people just do a drop a day for the whole year or so. So there's different ways to do it. But the way zeolite works is it's a positive charged molecule that will soak up toxins, chemicals, and heavy metals. So when it does bind, then you can urinate that out in 6 to 8 weeks, or 6 to 8 hours, not weeks, 6 to 8 hours. So it will bind the molecule because zeolite is negative, and the other toxins are positive, and so it'll bind. It will be excreted through your kidneys. You'll urinate it every 6 to 8 hours, and you're slowly getting rid of those toxins. Now, what's important here is that you need to talk to your doctor if you are on medication, because if you are on medication, taking zeolite may bind to your medication and make it less effective, and you're urinating out your medication. So if you are on medication, you have to talk to your doctor first to make sure that you can take zeolite so it's not affecting your dosage. So, but many people that are doing detoxification that they're not on meds, so you don't have that problem. But the ones that are older and they're on meds, or they have some sort of disease and they're on meds, it's important to talk to your doctor before you do any type of detoxification, because you want to make sure that the medication that's supposed to be in you to help with your disease isn't counteracted by zeolite. So you need to talk to your doctor before you use zeolite. But many people that are doing detoxification, they're not on medications at all. So that's okay. So please go to the store and get the zeolite. If you're on medication for heart, for diabetes, or anything, make sure you talk to your health professional before you take zeolite. So with that said, thank you for listening and have a nice day.